no. Oh, God.
After numerous Iranian missile attacks on Israel, battle alert was increased throughout all branches of the United States Armed Forces. Air Force units, Marine Corps fighter squadrons, all got the signal for combat readiness. The order went out promptly. Everything began moving at once. United States Marine Corps Marines were transferred from their barracks to the airport by bus. Upon arrival, they started loading onto a Boeing C-17 Globemaster III, sitting on the tarmac with its back ramp down. At the same time, cargo handlers were bringing in extra equipment on forklifts and flatbed carts, portable generators, munitions containers, communications gear, and medical supplies. Everything was tied down within the cargo compartment beside the Marines. This aircraft was planned to make one stop at another military site to pick up additional soldiers and equipment before traveling to the Middle East with a full cargo. At a neighboring location, many additional C-17s were already being loaded. Cargo handlers drove armored vehicles up the ramps, tactical buggies, armored trucks, MRAPs, and other combat vehicles. At a different airstrip, technicians were assembling fighter planes that would be utilized over the next days for persistent attacks on enemy military objectives. Every aircraft underwent a complete inspection. Avionics checked, radar systems tested, wiring and electronics analyzed panel by panel. Missiles and guided bombs were put onto the pylons, engine covers were removed, intakes examined, and fuel systems checked. These jets needed to be in pristine shape for continual combat sorties over the next few days. Meanwhile, at another location on the site, troops were in the hangar checking over their personal items. They prepared their duffel bags and rucksacks with everything they would need for an extended deployment. Uniforms, boots, hygiene kits, and personal stuff, all packed and ready. These men were not going on a short rotation. They were being taken to a military facility in the Middle East for an undetermined amount of time. Nobody had a return date. At dark, the order came to prepare for boarding. The troops lined up in columns outside the hangar and started advancing toward their allocated aircraft. They went up the ramps and took their places inside the C-17s. Loadmasters made final inspections on goods and head counts. The ramps closed. One by one, the aircraft taxied to the runway and took off, vanishing into the lowering sky. Upon arriving in the Middle East, the C-17s landed and unloading started immediately. Ramps fell, soldiers filed out. Vehicles were unchained and drove off. Cargo pallets were dragged out using forklifts. Everything moved at an increased speed. These same aircraft would be looping around and flying back to make numerous more flights, picking up more troops from various locations around the United States and delivering them there. For the troops going down the ramp and onto the tarmac, this base in the Middle East was suddenly home for as long as the operation required. No predetermined schedule, no return date on the calendar. They got their baggage, followed orders from base staff, and walked into their allotted quarters. The buildup was started, and additional aircraft were already coming. On the airport, maintenance personnel worked around the clock prepping jets for combat flights. The aircraft were parked in rows on the apron, some under open sky, others drawn into protective shelters. Fuel trucks drew up beside each aircraft. A mechanic fitted the single-point refueling nozzle to the port on the fuselage and began injecting JP-8 kerosene into the tanks. The gasoline flow was monitored on the truck's gauge panel. Once the tanks read full, the line was unplugged, the cap shut, and the truck went to the next jet. Weapons crews transported munitions on loading carts. Air-to-air missiles were raised onto the wingtip rails and secured into position. Guided bombs were installed on the underwing pylons using hoists. Each weapon was attached to the aircraft's electronics. The wire harness was connected in, the data connection checked, and the arming pins placed with red flags hanging from them. The pins remained in until the airplane was ready to taxi. Every firearm got a visual examination following installation. The crew verified the mounting lugs, the release mechanism, and the alignment on the pylon. The procedure continued for every fighter on the line, one aircraft after another going through the identical sequence. Fuel, armaments, airframe, avionics, flight controls, engines. By the time the pilots arrived for their briefing, every plane on that ramp was fueled, armed, inspected, and approved to fly.